Hello, everybody. It's Wednesday, so it's time for the Expendable Show. I'm your host, the Expendable. Hello, Bonnie. I see you over there. If you like my show, like, subscribe, and ding the bell. And this episode is brought to you by Gatsby Trading Solutions. Big meetings today with them guys. Driving around Atlanta in stupid traffic. And it was foggy this morning. Made it even worse. But it turned into be a nice day later. It was like 73. Sun was shining. Felt good out. Not gonna lie. But we'll get into our statistics real quick, and then we'll get into the big stories and go over a few things. So the gas prices across the nation are holding steady. We're at $2.81 still on average. Usually our gas here in Locust Grove is like the closer you get to I-75, like unless you're a quick trip, the quick trips are always cheap. But like the other gas stations close to I-75, they're a little bit more expensive. But like if you go down through like our main drag going towards I-75, like every gas station was like significantly different than the other one. So I'm not even really sure which one to go off of. It's just kind of a screwy time right now with the gas prices. So, which I've written a couple articles about that for the Islamabad Telegraph. So I've been paying close attention to the gas prices. It affects several markets that I'm invested in. So we will see how that goes. Mortgage rates still doing nothing. 5.990% on average. I don't know. I'm going to keep paying attention, but hopefully it does something. Now, here's the big shocker. Trump had a significant bump in his approval rating since Sunday. I wonder why. He is at 44% according to Real Clear Polling, which is the polling measurement I use, because if you just use Gallup or Reuters or any of the other ones as your singular polling, it's not going to, like, everybody polls different. So why not use Real Clear Polling where it averages everybody's poll out? That's the only averages make sense to me. I just going off of a biased poll. Like if I wanted to really make Trump look good, I would just use Fox News's poll, but I don't do that. I want to know what the average is. And I got to check and see what the Dow Jones closed at today. Wow, another record day. Imagine that. We're at $48,996,000.08. We're closing in on 50,000 on the Dow Jones. That's insane. I never thought that I would be alive to see that. And here it's happened in like just a year. It's insane how fast. Like if you left the Biden administration with money in your 401k, you're loaded right now. The retirement's looking real good for you right now. The Democrats, they don't ever poll their own party, so I gotta wait on Real Clear Polling for somebody to come out with another poll. They're still at 32.5%. Trump is like heavily beating them in polling right now. Amazing. So let's talk about the big news, what happened today. And I'm going to go through this in depth, and then I'm going to play the video, and then I'm going to talk about what I think about the video. I've already reached out to several people in law enforcement. One of my friends is in federal law enforcement to get their opinion on it. I haven't heard back from everybody yet, so I'll save that information for later. But we're going to go into it. So for those of you who don't know, I know a lot of people out there just don't like watching the news because it's depressing, and I get that. I respect that. So today it was East 34th Street and Portland Avenue in South Minneapolis. This is where this incident occurred. A U.S. Immigration and Custom Enforcement agent he had fatally shot a woman during a federal operation in Minneapolis. The incident immediately triggered a massive law enforcement response, protests, and conflicting accounts of what led to the shooting. Obviously, everything that happens in this country turns into a left-wing story or a right-wing story. So it just depends on what side of the fence you're on as to what story you're going to go with. I prefer to look at the facts and look at, I mean, if the ICE agent's wrong, he's wrong. If he's right, he's right. And there may be situations where I just don't know. And so we're gonna look at it and see what we come up with. And we're still collecting information. This is still a progressing story, so it's not fully it hasn't been fully digested by everyone that needs to put their hands on this yet. So we'll see. So according to DHS spokesman Tricia McLaughlin, ICE officers were conducting targeted operations in Minneapolis. DHS claims rioters began blocking ICE vehicles. The woman allegedly weaponized her vehicle and attempted to run over officers. An ICE officer fired defensive shots, killing her. DHS labeled the act domestic terrorism. Several ICE officers were reportedly injured but expected to recover. So they've made a clear statement as to what they said happened. So let's go over what some of the witnesses said. So multiple witness accounts sharply contradict DHS. Witnesses told local reporters the woman was trying to turn around after being told to leave. They say the vehicle was not moving toward agents. One witness described an ICE agent reaching across the hood and shooting her in the face several times, which I didn't. We'll go over the video. Another said ICE agents blocked medical aid, preventing a doctor at the scene from helping her. Like I said, I haven't seen all of the footage. There's so much footage out there. I'm still trying to get through it all. So Governor Tampon Tim said he confirmed the shooting was ICE related. He said the state is gathering information and urged people to be calm. Which I'm finally somebody said that. They should have been saying that before this happened, but we'll get into that too. So Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey, he demanded ICE leave the city immediately. He used lots of profanity in his statement. They're actually showing it on TV right now. I dug 100% into the life of Jacob Frey, and we're going to talk about that too. And so, hi, Jessica. So the city of Minneapolis, they warned residents to avoid the area, said ICE's presence is destabilizing the community, blah, blah, blah. ICE has been in Minnesota. That's the thing that these people aren't relaying to their flunkies out there. This isn't ICE didn't just show up and set up shop in a week. They've been there for decades. So they're just actually enforcing the law now. The law. So ABC News reported up to 2,000 ICE and Homeland Security investigations agents are being deployed to Minnesota. This is described as DHS's largest operation ever in the state. This surge is tied to the broader federal crackdown on fraud investigations in Minnesota, which I've already been tracking. The woman shot by ICE, she is deceased. Protests erupted at the scene. Some protesters reportedly blocked ICE vehicles. Pepper spray was deployed. I watched a civilian get beat just a little bit ago. I watched them attacking ICE officers again. So that is continuing to go on. FBI agents are on the scene conducting the investigation. So, we'll see what they come up with, if there's any new information there. So let's look at the protest. So according to the ACLED, which is the Armed Conflict Location and Event Data Project that tracks protests, their analysis of over 7,750 protests across the U.S. in 2020, they found that about 7% involved violence or destructive activity. Now, you may say, well, that's only 7%. That's 7% of 7,750. That is, almost 700 violent protests. So, I mean, that's kind of a problem. I think 1% is probably a good target number. 7%, when you actually look at what 7% looks like, it's a lot. Which that's been since 2020. So they say about 93% of all protests were peaceful, and they count every protest, like not just like the ones we see on TV. There's a lot of protests. Probably the Doug Harless protest is probably included in their data as part of the peaceful protest. So what counts as violent protest to them? They look at physical violence, property destruction, clashes with police, use of weapons, and arson. So that's what they categorize for those lefties out there that are always confused as to what we define things as. That's their definition. The data that I used that's the definition of violence that they used, because we all know that in the Minneapolis George Floyd riots, they had a very different definition of what peaceful protest was, which Tim Walz got caught in Congress getting questioned about, and he's like, "Wow, that's a criminal. It's a criminal in that picture." Well, no shit. That's part of the peaceful protest, you said. You know, the one where your wife wanted to keep the windows open so she could smell the city burning? Yeah, that peaceful protest. Idiots, like complete morons. All the leadership in that state is full of idiots. So across the entire post-2020 protest language, roughly 1 in 14 protests turn violent. 1 in 14. Think about that. So now I want to look at how the violent ones occur. So what it is it's seed planting. So what the left does is, if they want to say what Donald Trump said on J6 was inciting violence, which was extremely vanilla. Donald Trump did not say anything inciting in his speech at all. Unless you consider peacefully and patriotically letting them hear your voice and supporting their vote to do the right thing. But you guys have been brainwashed by this clip that they've been editing over and over and over again since it happened, that Donald Trump keeps suing all the networks over and winning, but you guys still hold on to it for some reason, that Donald Trump incited in January 6th, which we now know he didn't. But anyway, the Democrat left rhetoric, which is causing most of the violent protests now. I'm not saying that the right doesn't ever do it. I'm sure I can probably look back in history and there's probably hundreds of them that the right did. But right now, in the political climate that we're in right now, it's lefty driven. Just today, the mayor, Jacob Fry, or whatever the hell his name is, we're going to talk about him here in a minute. And he gets on there and he's like saying ICE needs to get out of his city. Well, for one, you can't tell ICE to get out of the city because they're a federal agency that is based in your city and they have to do their federal job. So you can't tell them to just leave your city, you idiot. So what this does is you're trying to fire up your base, fire up your community. It's not a direct, like, he's not coming out and saying, let's drive the ICE out of this country. He's not saying that, but he's planting just enough of that passionate anger seed because he knows that these lefty protesters, they thrive off of their emotional response. And that's what they go with. They light that emotional response, and then all the politicians, they step back and wait on one of them to do something ridiculous. And then as soon as that happens, all the politicians get on TV and go, Donald Trump, and that's the game plan. And these protesters fall for this shit every single time. One thing that they need to understand is while you're being puppeteered by a bunch of dried up, visionless leaders, if you want to call them that, your people are, the people on the ground are being set up for failure 100%. For one, a lot of you are going to lose your jobs. You're going to lose your credibility to get jobs. You're going to potentially lose your freedom. And now you can potentially lose your life because the split decision that a cop has. And I know I'm critical of law enforcement. For those people in Kentucky that follow me, I'm very critical of law enforcement. But I do know that when you're dealing as a law enforcement officer and you're dealing in tense situations, and I wish I could have Victor Hill on here because he could attest to a lot of this. He's been through a lot of this stuff, with a bigger area in Atlanta or in Clayton County. But when you're dealing with a very high, intense, stressful situation, like a protest where there's agitators, and you have this vehicle, and this vehicle's been causing you problems all day, and your defense of yourself and of others revolves around you making a decision that's faster than I can snap my finger. Faster than that. So why, as a human being, would you take that, the odds of that officer choosing correctly in that quick of a decision to save people or let people die? Why would you risk that? Because the odds are heavily against your favor as an agitator. You have a high probability of being arrested, shot. There's a lot of, you increase the probability of a lot of negative things that could happen. So I'm a numbers guy. So I'm always looking at odds, and those are odds I won't take. I'm not going to walk out there and go, I should probably get right in the middle of this because, I gotta do my patriotic duty to my Democrat leaders that are setting me up for failure, knowing that the odds are stacked against you to be successful in your plan, and you increase the probability of you being shot. They're setting you up to be shot, arrested, roughed up by the police. Like, there's 1,000 scenarios that can happen in this case. But you want to test your luck with armed officers that in a tense situation that you guys created? I'm not doing it. I'm not even going in that neighborhood at all. I'm avoiding it like the plague. So there's a lot of scenarios of things that can go wrong. And then you have you got, my dad just reminded me of something that Tampon Tim said today. He threatened to use the National Guard against ICE. Like, what kind of stupid comment is that? That's him saying, I will weaponize the National Guard against the federal government in a war. What do you think that's going to do to people when they hear their governor that they buy into because of the lefty ideologies, and he's saying, I will utilize the National Guard to fight back against ICE? And now he's a lame duck. So he's got nothing to lose. Tim Walz has nothing to lose. He's not going to be president. He's not running for governor. He knows his gig's up. So why not burn it the rest of the way down on the way out? We have to remember where Tim Walz's loyalties lie. They lie with China. He couldn't say enough good things about China. He loves China. So why would he do the right thing? He's surrounded by this very, very heavy socialist influence and basically worship Xi Jinping. It's the same state that wanted to defund the police. Get rid of all the cops. Kamala Harris had the cashless bail, or the to get all the rioters out of jail in Minneapolis when the George Floyd riots happened. Hey, let's get these guys. They're assaulting police officers, but let's make sure they can post bail. Let's get them all out. It's a disaster. The vast majority of protests in our country are peaceful, in fact. So I don't want to say that they're not. I'm not a protesting kind of guy. I just can't do the groups. I'm kind of a lone wolf on things. So I don't do protests. But I don't say that they're bad, because you have the constitutional right to protest. Do I think that there's a line that you can't cross when you're protesting? Absolutely. There's a protest, and then there's a crime. So you have to know where the line is if you're a protester. And I think they're struggling with that. I think they think that, well, if my Democrat friends say I can do whatever I want in a protest, then I can do whatever I want in a protest, and there's going to be no consequences. No, there's going to be consequences. You're going to catch felony charges. Now they're throwing domestic terrorism charges out there. So you're going to be on a watch list, and you're probably going to get pulled over a lot. So it's a huge thing. Always got to check my fact checking. The whole defund the police thing was big, and that hit hard. That was really a negative, kind of a negative connotation for most Americans. Like, if you can't, if you can't go to the cops, if you're being robbed, who do you go to? I mean, Minnesota just has everything backwards. Hey, Rachel. So Jacob Fry, I was very curious once he got on TV and started doing all this, talking like a tough guy. Now, he comes from a family full of ballerinas, mom and dad. So, which, ballerinas, there's a lot of beauty there. It's definitely a high skilled kind of activity. I don't know if you call it a sport. It's more of an art, right? I don't know. Somebody correct me on that. I'm probably wrong. But you got to be an athlete to be a ballerina. But he comes from a family of ballerinas. And so I took a dive into him because I wanted to see what's this guy all about? Since when does he get on TV and tell the federal government what to do? So he was elected in 2017, and as of January 2026, has begun his third term as mayor. So he was the mayor of Minneapolis when it burnt to the ground. He enabled that. He probably worked hand in hand with Tim Walz on it. My question is, how can the left cry about Trump violating international law when the left doesn't even follow U.S. law? So, I don't want to hear not one lefty say, the Venezuela thing is international law. But you guys don't follow U.S. law. So like, I mean, I get it, because the lefty ideology is to, well, we get to pick and choose what laws get enforced. That's how it works. We pick and choose. But if you're a righty, you got to follow all of them. That's not how America works. That's not how it works at all. Law is law. I don't care if it's an immigration law. I don't care if it's a freaking property tax law. Law is law, and you have to follow the law. If you don't, there's consequences. The system is set up for checks and balances, and for action and reaction, and crime and consequences, and accountability. We're set up for these things. And the left keeps putting these asterisks in there. Like, yeah, that's a crime, but stick that asterisk right there. Yeah, that's a crime, but we'll stick 2 asterisks by that one. And that's not how it works. The law is not a open for interpretation kind of thing. At least not for politicians, it's not. That's made for Supreme Court justices and district courts and federal courts. It's not made for politicians. They don't get to interpret the law as they see fit. So anyway, Jacob Fry. So Jacob Fry was born in 1981. He's a month older than me. He's from Arlington County, Virginia. He was raised in Virginia, in a suburb of Washington, D.C. He was born. His parents were Jewish. His mom was Ashkenazi Jewish. I don't know what that means. I don't know a whole lot about the Jewish religion. His father converted to Judaism. Both were professional modern ballet dancers. His father also worked as an acrobat. Yeah, gray areas do suck, Rachel. I agree. So he was brought up in Jewish cultural traditions. He has a strong arts environment. He has a disciplined athletic style. Now I do like that. He was a cross-country runner for William and Mary. He won a title in 2002. He competed at the Pan Am Games. The guy's a pretty decorated athlete. He has a bachelor's degree in government from William and Mary. He's got a Juris Doctorate from Villanova School of Law. After law school, Fry moved to Minneapolis in 2009 and worked as he was an employment discrimination and civil rights attorney at Farge and Benson, or Fagre. I don't know how you Faegre, Fagre. I don't know. Fagre and Benson, and later Halunin and Associates. He also became involved in community organizing, local civic projects, and neighborhood advocacy. So in his personal life, he was married once from 2009 to 2014 to Michelle Lilienthal. They got divorced in 2014. Then he got remarried to Sarah Clark. Sarah Clark's significant. We're going to talk about her too. They got married in 2016. Her job is she's a Minnesota lobbyist representing nonprofits and businesses. Is there some irony behind that? Let's find out. He has 2 children, his daughter Frida, and a second child that was born in July of 2025. So Sarah Clark, his wife, his current wife, the lobbyist, what did she lobby for? She was in the clean energy sector. She held multiple roles tied to clean energy advocacy, the Clean Energy Economy Minnesota. She worked as a business outreach manager, supported clean energy businesses, and lobbied policymakers at local, state, and federal levels. She was part of Treehouse Management, clean energy investment work. That's what she did there. She provided legal and compliance support, for clean energy project financing sources. Currently, she works for Nokomis Energy, She's a corporate counsel for a clean energy development company. While the role is legal rather than lobbying, it reflects her continued alignment with the clean energy sector that she was lobbying for. But she's connected. Then she lobbied for early childhood education and social programs. I wonder if she was paying any attention to the Somali daycares. During her time at Hylden Advocacy and Law, she lobbied for early learning scholarships, secured over $70 million annually in public funding sources. I have this very staunch feeling that her name's going to come up in this whole federal fraud investigation. I have a feeling. I may be wrong, but I have a feeling. She also lobbied for Better Futures Minnesota. She served as communications director and lobbyist. She advocated for workforce and reentry programs. She also lobbied for workforce development coalitions. She represented or organized coalitions focused on employment and training in communities of color. Emerging Workforce Coalition, where she lobbied for. The members of that included Summit Academy OIC, Latino Academy, Teocalli, Tequiatl. Then there's Hmong American Partnership. There's CLUES, which is Comunidades Latinas Unidas en Servicio. I'm not good at Spanish. And then she also lobbied for Northwest Indian sources. So she's got her hands in a lot of stuff. Her work involved lobbying the Minnesota Department of Employment and Economic Development and the Minnesota Job Skills Partnership Board. There's a lot to dig up on this woman. So then I went and do what I do, and I looked up who donates to Mr. Fry. So naturally, there's no listed individual donors. Everything's run through PACs. So ironically, 28% of Jacob Fry's donors were Republican donors in 2024. Why? You may say, why are Republicans donating to this clown? Because Minnesota has the same problem Kentucky has. Minnesota is a uniparty state, just like Kentucky is. I've been looking into it for the last 2 weeks. They are a uniparty state, just like Kentucky is. So they make it look like it's partisan or bipartisan, it really isn't. It's a uniparty. They have one party. Everybody supports each other. They're all part of the same scams and scandals. So Mayor Fry received money from the Real Estate Developers and Property Management Group. I'm pretty sure his wife had something to do with that lobby, which is supported by real estate developers, property managers, landlord associations, and Minnesota Multi-Housing Association. Is there maybe a conflict of interest between his wife and him? Like, should she be able to lobby while he's the mayor? I feel like that's a huge conflict of interest. I don't understand. Although it may not be illegal, it certainly is unethical. But lefties don't care about ethics. Ethics don't matter to them. These groups are explicitly listed as major funders of the pro-Fry PACs. So here's Downtown Business Interest that his wife had a hand in. The Minneapolis Downtown Council is a major financial backer of PACs aligned with Fry. They represent large downtown employers, commercial property owners, hospitality, and real estate interest. He was also involved with Minneapolis Regional Chamber of Commerce, Rideshare, which is the tech sector, which it's part of Lyft. So Lyft donates to them. So what have we found here? Giant corporations donate to this guy, even though our whole platform on the left is to fight back against wealthy corporations and make them pay their fair share. Well, let's make them not buy politicians. That might stop a lot of that. You think? Maybe don't let corporations buy politicians with campaign donations. Just a thought. I think maybe they need to like lower the contribution number. Let the contributions be more grassroots. Force it to be that way. But nope, because politicians love big bucks, and they're never gonna let that happen. Donate away, big dogs. I know, right, Rachel? It makes too much sense. He's also bought and paid for by center-left labor unions. Imagine that. Center-left trade unions, public sector-aligned unions, they got their money involved in him. You've got a corporation, or I don't know if it's a PAC. It's called All of Minneapolis. Another PAC called We Love Minneapolis. Another PAC called Thrive MPLS, which stands for Minneapolis. So most of his individual donors, as they don't specifically name them. I dug and couldn't find not one single mentioned individual human being that donates to him. Everything's ran through PACs. However, they do say that they're mostly wealthy Minneapolis residents, especially in the Kenwood, East Harriet, and downtown riverfront buildings. If you don't know anything about Minneapolis, that is where the uber wealth is at. So the guy's bought and paid for by big money people. So before we move on to the Minnesota fraud update, let's play our video here. Here's the video, and we'll talk about the video real quick. And I stole this from Fox. Okay, so what we're seeing is you're seeing ICE agents and HSI agents. I'm not sure exactly who's who, but it's either both, one or the other. They're approaching this vehicle. The vehicle is the vehicle in question that is blocking ICE agents from being able to get where they need to go. So Kristi Noem was just on TV about probably 30 minutes ago talking about how this specific vehicle was a hindrance and a pest all day to Homeland Security and ICE efforts. It kept blocking things and just kept hindering their investigation. So I know this one officer is kind of in the way, the officer that's trying to get her out. They're asking her to get out. And even the people, the witnesses, the witness protesters, they said that they were trying to get her out of the car, that they had ordered her to get out of the car. She refused. She refused the direct order. Law enforcement was probably going to detain her or arrest her. So now she has committed a felony by resisting arrest. So the other officer, the officer who shoots into the car, you can kind of see where she hits him, and it's not a clear a visual. And I'm gonna run it back a little bit so we can see it. Look at the front of the hood. His arm kind of flies where she.
That's number one. You see the agent who was in front
and he opens fire.
That vehicle. Here's number two. Let's watch this. There's no audio on
Here's
this.
another camera angle. Let's see what we see.
We watch this unfold as well.
No, we're not going to get a good angle of the people that we need to get a good angle of.
That second one harder to see. It's
And
from
he's
across the
limping. You can
street.
see
We
him
have a
limp.
third video that we also are cleared to use now as well.
third
Let's take
angle.
a look at this one from a higher angle.
I mean, that's a
and you
tough
see this
angle.
is
You
the
can't
car
really see a whole
after the
lot.
shooting as it plows into two cars that were parked.
So as we know, those in law enforcement that know anything about anything, a vehicle is a weapon. Fact. Case law has proved it over and over and over again. There's no doubt. She became a fugitive once she committed that felony and refused to get out of her vehicle, and she resisted arrest, and then she fled. She tried to flee. So she's in the legal standpoint of this, she's got strike 1 and 2. And then when she hits that officer, that is what it looks like she hits him from the 2 angles, and then he limps away. Now, backstory, Director Nome also said that same specific ICE agent was in an altercation a while ago and was hit by a car then too and had to get medical treatment. So she said that after this incident, he had to go seek medical treatment, and she sent him home to be with his family. Obviously, you don't want to if you get involved in a situation like that, you want to get the ICE officer out of there because all these clowns are going to be hunting him down. So I think we really need to, break these videos down, and before we react, before we get too crazy about things, because that's what they're wanting. This video, they're flooding it all over CNN and MSDNC and Politico and all the super socialist networks, and they're trying to get people emotional. Don't let these videos get you emotional. Stay calm, because these things. Hey, G bro, what's up, man? I just now looked down. I saw G bro, and I looked up and I saw a comment, and it says Soros is alive and well, operating in London, Kentucky. I actually believe that. Let's get into George Soros. Now you got me fired up. We're going to talk about it. All right, let me get back to my thing. Well, I'm going to skip the fraud update because Soros is going to take a minute. I still got like 7 more pages of notes. That was a good. You got me on that one. I wasn't prepared. So let's talk about George Soros. Trump just recently made a statement about George Soros. Now, we've heard this for the last 10, 15 years. Everybody talks about George Soros. Soros. I even wrote an entire chapter in my book, From the Mouth, about that clown. So I've even he's lived rent free in my head before. So let's really break down to what Trump said and what could be a possibility. So Trump publicly called for George Soros and his son Alex, who's a complete turd, to face federal charges. I'm glad I get to say stuff on my podcast, because when I do international media, I'm not allowed to use words like turd. They frown upon that kind of stuff. And in August 20, could you imagine reading one of my articles and you see the word turd in there? That'd be priceless. If they didn't catch it. In an August 27, 2025 True Social post, Trump wrote that George Soros and his son should be charged under RICO. Absolutely, I 100% agree. He accused them of supporting violent protests. Absolutely, I 100% agree. He warned them to be careful. We're watching you. Good. I hope so. So Politico and Newsweek both documented this, that Trump escalated the rhetoric, calling Soros-linked groups dangerous. Trump claimed Soros-backed organizations were responsible for violent protests and damage to our country. 100% agree. So Trump's comments triggered Department of Justice actions. USA Today reported that shortly after Trump's public accusations, a senior DOJ official ordered federal prosecutors to investigate Soros-linked organizations, including Open Society Foundation, for potential charges like material support for terrorism, arson, and racketeering. There's plenty there. Almost every country has investigated. George Soros isn't even allowed to touch Russian soil. He's still under investigation in India. I just asked my Indian sources about that yesterday. He's still under investigation. Open Society could be facing some major issues in India. This followed Trump's public demand for RICO charges. Trump has repeatedly tied Soros to prosecutors pursuing cases against him. We know that to be true. That you can follow the money all over the place. Soros is so ignorant, he doesn't even try to hide it anymore, nor does his son. So in multiple statements, Trump has accused Soros of pulling the strings behind prosecutors like Letitia James, funding radical left legal efforts against him. This is reflected in reporting from AOL News and Newsweek. So Trump has recently made those strong comments about George Soros, which I'll back in. I think that guy's a tyrant. He's one of those people. I try not to wish people death, but I feel like George Soros is one of those people that when all his crimes come out into what he's done, and they don't even tell you about how he has funded the war in Israel on both sides of the fence. He's given money to Israel. He's given money to the Palestinians. He's given money to anybody to keep that conflict going on. He's almost as bad as Victor Boot. Those of you who don't know who Victor Boot is, he's the guy that we traded for Brittany Griner, the merchant of death who's responsible for millions of dead people. That's how bad George Soros is. Yeah, Victor Boot. He's a bad apple. I want to try to interview Victor Boot. I think he would be a very interesting interview. So Trump has very recently made these comments. He's calling for federal prosecution. He's accused Soros of backing violent protests, linking Soros to legal actions against him, and warning Soros publicly on social media. So is there a possibility that George Soros could be indicted? There is. It is fact that there is a federal pressure to investigate him, but there's no confirmed indictment. There's no indictment and no public evidence that prosecutors have found a chargeable offense. So obviously they're not going to come out and say, yes, we're investigating him for this. So as of the information that we do have, there is a non-zero possibility. So that's the Department of Justice is saying that there is a non-zero possibility, which means that, well, we're not saying that there's no possibility. We're saying that it is possible. So the Department of Justice has formally directed multiple U.S. attorneys' offices to prepare potential criminal cases against Soros' Open Society Foundation. That does create a non-zero possibility of an indictment. The Department of Justice has ordered prosecutors to investigate the whole network, including his offices in California, New York, Washington, D.C., Illinois, Michigan, and Maryland. Thank God we don't have one in here in Atlanta. They've even named a DOJ official to start the directives, which is Akash Singh, and confirmed by The Independent, confirmed by USA Today, and confirmed by ABC News. It's not a rumor, it's documented, baby. Let's get them. So the Department of Justice letter lists potential charges. The directive lists a wide range of possible charges, including racketeering under the RICO statute. Don't let Fani Willis do it. She never gets convictions on the RICO cases. She couldn't even get one on Young Thug, who they had dead to rights, because what they didn't tell you in the news was all her investigators on that case kept sleeping with the witnesses. So they had to keep throwing out evidence, which screwed up the whole case here in Fulton County. So don't let Fani Willis do it. She couldn't get a RICO charge on Trump either. So because she screwed that up, even though Trump didn't, he shouldn't even have been charged in the first place. So there's racketeering, material support for terrorism, arson, and wire fraud. That is also confirmed by The Independent, USA Today, and ABC News. So we've got movement on George Soros. I've been saying that for a minute too. That Weddle was brought into London to liberalize it, and he's done it. I mean, not fully, but if you go back and you look at the voting record, like things slowly got liberal. He is liberalizing London, and everyone's falling asleep at the wheel while it's happening. I mean, what you guys just did you guys have a trans parade or something not too long ago in London? I mean, I don't have anything against trans people, but when they do their their big things, like I'm like, what is there an agenda here? I always second guess it. Is there an agenda? So, adults, people, if you want to be trans, be trans. But it's almost like a gateway drug. You start off, the trans community shows up, and then it just turns into, well, the kids should get to choose. And that's where I draw the line. Kids don't get to choose if you want to be transgender or you can be a cross dresser, I suppose, and dress up like a girl all you want, but surgeries, no surgeries, because listen, this is going to be very sexist, so bear with me. I've been married twice for 20 total years. Both my wives changed their mind more than they changed their underwear. So to allow a child to make a huge decision like that, when they're most likely going to change their mind at some point in their life, knowing that grown-ass adult women change their mind every 10 minutes, solidifies my argument here. I just think it's a bad idea. I think when you scar up a kid like that, and we don't really have the technology to really fix it. I think we really need to maybe rethink that a little bit, because what happens if you change your mind? You've destroyed your body. Yeah, I think we really need to, and that's pretty much the end of my George Soros spiel. But I really do think you guys down there in Kentucky really need to really dig in with your conservative values and call it out for what it is. And he wants to continue to sit there and say, "Oh, I'm a Republican. I ran as a Republican, but I give all my money to Democrats in every state, including a bunch of money to Andy Bashir." No, that's not a Republican. That's just you running as a Republican in name only. Like you're a rhino, but worse. And we all know Kentucky's a uniparty. Now we're starting to see some movement on that, where you're seeing some of the legislators like TJ Roberts is starting to speak out on that. And I'm enjoying that. And I'm actually going to be reaching out to him to see if he'll give me comment on some questions that I have about some of these investigations, especially with the illegal immigrants getting licensed in Kentucky. Like that, I want to know what are we going to do about that? Are we given criminal referrals? Is there going to be a criminal referral on this? I feel like that I haven't seen where anybody got arrested for that. Making fake IDs for illegal immigrants. That's kind of a big deal. Who authorized it? Why did it seem like it was an orchestrated thing? So Thanks, Rachel, for backing me up on that. I'm just saying, I have experience. I mean, I've been taking notes. Wife 1, changed mind 10 minutes later, changed mind again, 10 minutes later, changed mind again. Look, you can't keep up. You can't keep up. Especially now you give a woman ADHD everybody's got ADHD now. My last wife had ADHD really bad. She done changed career paths so many times. I was like, look, why don't you just stay home? You don't work because I can't keep up. I don't know where you're going. What job are you trying to go to now? So, that's kind of how that is. But London, y'all need to protect your conservative community. Don't let Weddle and his little flunkies come in there and try to turn it into a giant weird fest like they do in every city. Yeah, so I'm waiting. I'm kind of waiting on that a little bit, Bonnie. And it is a big win. The city council had a huge win in court against the city employees. And I want to kind of map out all the events of that before I talk too much about it. But it was a huge win for city council. Weddle was not happy when he came out of that. So, yeah, we're getting somewhere. And he was kind of quiet at the city council meeting. He kind of stuck to decorum and didn't really try to pick fights with anybody, or at least in the footage that I saw. I noticed that they doctored it up again. So I don't know. Maybe I missed some action because they keep taking it out. Like if stuff happens and they don't want anybody to see Bobby Day trying to go after a 70-year-old man, they just cut it out. Yeah, that is basically it, Bonnie. The courts basically said that you can't just go rogue and make your own rules. You have to get city council's approval, which in the history of the United States, that's always been how it works. I don't know why he thinks that it doesn't work that way. Just because you think you're rich, which I don't think you're rich anymore. You can't just do what you want. There's still a process for doing things. Wait, Bobby was demoted? When? He needs to be fired. But anyway, that's going to be my show for the day. And we'll be back. What day is it? Wednesday? We'll be back on Sunday. What? Bobby Day's no longer the chief. That's breaking news. Why has nobody told me this until now? Hallelujah. So we won't get to see him get interviewed on the Randall Weddle London, Kentucky face or the YouTube page. Awesome. I love seeing that. That's a win. That's a huge win. Good job, London. Way to fight back. That's a huge win. All right, Bonnie, I'll get my, okay, I'm out of here. Peace.